In today's episode, I want to talk about how the evolution or maturity of your retirement plan will greatly help you retire with confidence. Hi, if we haven't met before, my name is Mike Potter, owner of True Wealth Financial, and I'd like to welcome you to the True Wealth Show. I believe that with a comprehensive retirement plan, retirement can be the best years of your life and that it can be prosperous, enjoyable, and purposeful. But there's a lot of pitfalls and traps you need to be aware of along the way. And so this show is dedicated to helping Christians intentionally navigate decisions, enhance their financial future, and plan their retirement so that they can retire with confidence. Thanks for taking the time to tune in. So before we get to unpack the maturity model we're going to outlay today, I want to revisit our True Wealth retirement framework. It's basically the step-by-step approach of the major blocks you want to do or baby steps that will lead you into a retirement that you can enjoy. So the first thing we want to do is unpack what does our defined retirement life look like? What do we need? What do we want? And what do we wish we could have if we could have everything? So we begin to unpack that in step one. Step two then is we now overlay your financial cash flows associated with it. So there's generally three types. We have human capital, money that we have coming in from various things that we do, work, part-time work, consulting, rentals, income, stuff like that. We have social capital, Social Security, pensions, annuities, things like that. And then we have our financial bucket of money that overlays to fill in any gaps that are necessary. So, and then at that point, we might have to refine some things. And then we want to build out in step three, our non-financial plan, right? So what do we want to do in retirement that is not financially related, but more life related? So what are we going to do for our health? What are we going to do for our relationships, our community? What are we going to do for our purpose or passion or our activities? What are we going to do to enhance our relationship with the Lord in that stage of life? Things like that, the non-financial aspects of life. Step four then is to begin to arrange your retirement income. You might have to move things around to get it in place, ready to go. And then I try to encourage in step five to practice retirement, right? Practice the things you can do. Maybe take a sabbatical. Start practicing what it's like to get paid one time a month. Practice what it's like to live off of the amount that you say you're going to be able to live off of. That's step five. Step six is then transition into retirement, right? Pulling the lever, giving your notice, unwinding things at work, selling your business, closing your business, whatever that might look like for you. Starting Social Security, transitioning to new health insurance, starting Medicare, whatever it is that you're taking place in that step. And then number seven is to live out retirement. You've done the hard work, you've done the planning. Now it's an opportunity to go live it. So those are the seven major steps that will help you as you transition in retirement. Ideally, you should start navigating those steps 3 to 5 years before retirement. That way you have adequate time to adjust as necessary. I kind of think of it as a plane, right? So if you've ever flown a plane, you're cruising along at 40,000 feet, and then you can begin that descent. This is that intentional descent. Well, a pilot doesn't land, go from 40,000 feet to zero in a mile before he hits the runway. It's a long descent in, generally 30 to 45 minutes or so. Same thing here. It's a long descent in. You've been cruising for 40 years working. Well, now the descent into retirement needs to be done gradual and intentional. So that's what you want to be doing 3 to 5 years out. Ideally, before that, you're setting yourself up for retirement. You're paying off the house. You're maxing out your investings, right? You're doing a lot of things to put you in a good, solid financial position so that you can begin these transitions here. Well, today I want to unpack a retirement plan maturity matrix that essentially overlays these plans. It's the evolution or the maturity of your financial plan. So many years ago, almost a decade ago or so, I was a senior information systems engineer. And so I worked a lot with maturity models. So maturity models is a way that you can assess how evolved something is. It could be an IT system, it could be an organization, it could be a department inside of an organization. So an example here is from the Department of Labor. This is a data management maturity model. It basically shows you how they maintain, secure, utilize data along the way. So you can see here, the lowest level, the informed level, basically refers to the fact that They don't have good processes. It's not well managed. It's just locally managed. They're operating in an ad hoc environment. They're using whatever resources they have available. It's not intentional, right? So that's kind of level 1 from this example. Level 5 then is the highest level, where they have clearly defined processes. Everybody knows what to do. It's value add. The staff is trained and knowledgeable of its use. The processes are sophisticated, automated, standardized, and optimized across the entire organization, right? So you can see how, one is kind of a lower level bar, one is the other one. And so a maturity model helps you determine where you are in that evolution. Are we kind of at the beginning? Are we at the end? Are we somewhere in between? And that's what I want to help illustrate here with retirement plans. How mature is your retirement plan? Is it kind of in its infancy stage, or is it really running on all cylinders and completely optimized? So that's what we're going to unpack today. So why is this even important, Mike? Great question, right? What I believe is the whole goal of retirement is to getting to the life that you want. But a lot of people struggle with that because it's all new to them. They don't know what they don't know. And so the idea of leaving the comfort that they've had, transitioning to something new, is scary. Well, the goal of a retirement plan is to help you retire with confidence. So think about it as an XY axis. The more mature or the more evolved your retirement plan is, the more confidence that you'll have. And that's the idea. So there's 4 levels we're going to talk about here today. And the reason why I'm introducing this to you, because as you see things progress over time on this show, you'll know what I mean when I'm saying certain terms. So maturity level number 1 of your plan is it's defined. For most people, they don't ever take the time to define what they want their retirement to actually look like. So level 1 is a defined plan. A defined plan is we know what we need. We know what we need our life to look like financially so that we can live the life that we want. We know what our electric bill is. We know what our rent is. We know what our property taxes are. We've defined we need a monthly or quarterly or yearly amount of money to actually just live. Then we know what we want. We want to travel some. We want to do this. We want to give here. We want to engage in that. And what do we want, right? That is written down. A lot of people somewhat have that in their head, but they've never taken the time to get it out of their head and on paper where they can see it. Not only that, if you're married, you and your spouse are in agreement, because if one spouse has an idea of, hey, we're going to travel and see the world, and the other one says, I've been traveling for all these years, and I can't wait to retire and sit at home, that's going to be a conflict. And if that's all maintained inside, and you never talk about it, you never agree upon it, and then when you get to retirement, 2 people have 2 different ideas of what life's going to look like, and now we're going to solve it when we're retired, that's going to be a problem, right? So a defined retirement plan is basically when you're retired, you know how much income you need, where you're going to live, what you're going to do for activities, whether you're going to travel, what your hobbies are going to be, what you're going to do with your time, your recreations, things like that. You know what you need to do from an insurance perspective. You have major goals identified, like major house projects or newer cars, gifting, things like that, right? So a defined plan is we get these ideas out of our head and on paper where we can see it. That's maturity level number 1, which ironically, most people never get to. So even if you get there, you're ahead of the average American. All right. So then level number 2 is that of a feasible plan. We have this desired life that we want to live. We know what we need. We know what we want. We know what we wish for. We know what that's going to look like. The question is now, can we reasonably, feasibly afford it? So now we start to overlay this kind of in that step 2 of that framework. We start to overlay the income streams, the social capital, the human capital, the financial capital. And can we afford the life that we want in retirement, right? And that's what it is. Not only can we afford it, but is it sustainable to the point where we don't run out of money? And this is where either financial software or spreadsheets really come into play to help you make these decisions. Is how feasible is it? Do we have an income plan to address our retirement plan? So it takes all those needs, wants, and wishes and applies those 3 aspects of capital. And ideally, you have a year 1 through 5 cash flow. We know that this is what we want to do. And we know that for year 1, we're going to have this much coming from Social Security. We're going to have this much coming from pension. We're going to do some part-time work here. And we know we're going to take some money from our 401k or a Roth IRA. You have a 5-year cash flow plan. So you know for 5 years where your income is coming from. And we have a feasible amount that you'll be able to last for money. The way we do that is, at least in software, is they have a probability of success. We run a Monte Carlo simulation, which is basically 1,000 trials to see how many of those are successful with you having money at the end of the plan. Ideally, we want that greater than 70%, right? Kind of think like C spells degree, right? So greater than 70%, because we can adjust and we have flexible things that we can do in retirement as we progress, but we have to at least get to that 70 as a starting point, at least in my mind. So maturity level 1 is defined. Maturity level 2 is feasible. Hey, if you're still with me and you're finding this information helpful, do me a favor, hit that like button down there. It lets me know that this is interesting to you so I can do more shows like this. And it's a great way to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So now, level number 3. Level number 3 is what we call a resilient plan. A resilient plan. This is where in our plan, we start to ensure that you have margins or room to adjust for really external or internal stressors or shocks of life, right? It's kind of like everything. If you're right on the edge and there's no margin, that'll be great if everything works out. But if you haven't ever noticed in life, everything doesn't work out the way it's always supposed to. And so ideally, we need to have a resilient plan that can absorb those stressors and shocks, and you'll still be okay, or at least have a mechanism to adjust. So what do we mean by that? Well, some external stressors or shocks could be things like inflation, right? So in retiring in 2022 looked very different than retiring in 2012, 10 years before, from an inflation perspective. So what will inflation look like 2032? I have no idea. And you probably don't know either. But if it's really high, we need to be able to account for that or adjust for that. Same thing with markets. Are you going to retire in a good market or in a bad market? You don't really know. And so therefore, not only that, what's it going to do 2 years after you retire? You don't really know. So you have to have a plan that can adjust for market returns. Social Security, right? So you have a lot of options as to when you start Social Security, but you're hearing things about, in 2035, Social Security could become insolvent, meaning that it can't pay out the current benefits it's promised. So what happens if Social Security changes 10 years from now? Can you absorb that change in your plan? Taxes, right? The federal government is in $35 trillion of debt or so. What happens if things change from a tax perspective? Because if you have noticed, they will. The Secure Act just did a major change a couple of years ago about how beneficiaries inherit IRAs and 401ks from people that pass away, thereby changing things to get more money out of those accounts faster. What happens if the rules change a little bit later? Can you absorb that? Healthcare costs, if you have a major health experience or long-term care, right? These types of things, those are external factors that are going to have an impact on your plan. You want to have a resilient plan that can absorb those shocks or at least account for them, and then you have some options and flexibility. But not only are there external things, there's also internal things, right? Like, what if you spend more? What if you live longer, right? So your plan is based upon you living till maybe 87, as an example. What if you live till 97? You'll need a lot more money. So will your plan absorb that risk of longevity? What if someone dies early, right? You and your spouse have a plan that's predicated upon both of you living till 87. But what if one person passes away at 70? What's the impact to your retirement plan and your financial plan if you have a loss of a spouse and the income that that person had, maybe through Social Security or through a pension, things like that? Disability. What if you get disabled and now you need nursing care, right? Long-term care events, things like that. Major illnesses. These are not internal things like you cause per se, but they happen because of, genes or genetics or events that take place in your life, right? So a resilient plan will help you absorb those types of events. So we're talking about the maturity levels of a retirement plan. So number 1 is defined. Number 2 is it's feasible. Number 3 is that it's resilient. And that brings us to level 4, which is optimized. An optimized plan is one that's resilient, that we're making even better, right? What could that look like? That could be like things like, hey, we could retire earlier. We thought we were going to work till 67, but it looks like we have everything in place. We're good. We could probably pull the trigger at 65 if we want to, or maybe 60 or 55, right? We could retire earlier. We could retire bigger and better. We thought our life would look like this, but we have a lot of room. It could really look like this, right? Not just from a qualitative perspective, but also quantitative. We thought we could take one trip a year overseas. Maybe we can take 2 or 3. Maybe we can take the kids and the grandkids with us. We can do all kinds of things. An optimized plan will help you reduce taxes. The more things you can do to reduce taxes in your retirement plan, the more money you have, right? Because the taxes go off to Uncle Sam and Aunt Iris, but that means it's gone forever, right? But if you can reduce your taxes, keep more money for you and your plan, that can grow and evolve and you can do more things with it. You could still be doing wealth building potentially. I have a lot of clients that are pretty well financially set where in retirement, we're still keeping a pretty growth-minded investment strategy because they don't need to take the money out. Even as they approach 70, they retired maybe at 50, 62 or 65 or 60, somewhere in there. But because we've had a good income plan of money coming in, they're still growing wealth. They're getting wealthier as they're retired because they've taken care of some things. Enhanced estate planning can be done to optimize a plan. Legacy plans. We thought we would have this much, but maybe we could give this much to charity or organizations or causes or kids or grandkids and a whole lot more. The idea here being that we can enhance or optimize the plan because we've set the stage. We have a solid foundation, and so we can build bigger and better. So again, what does this do? The central idea here being is that the more mature your plan is, the more confidence you'll have when it comes to retirement. But obviously, you have to do it in the right order. A lot of people want to what-if stuff. What if we retire here? What if we take Social Security earlier? What's the impact? You can't do any of those trade-off decisions until at least you have a defined plan, but ideally a feasible plan. Because once it's feasible, now you can begin to what-if things a lot. And you can start to decide what more likely your retirement plan will actually be, which is why it's important to start this process again 3 to 5 years before you ideally want to retire. So as we conclude today's show, if you're still with me and you find this information helpful, please consider hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified of future episodes. Today, we talked about a maturity model in relation to retirement plans. Now, if you're concerned about your retirement plan and you haven't even started this process, I'd encourage you to engage in a True Wealth assessment. It's a financial checkup, if you will, of sorts to determine how retirement ready you are and how on track you are. We'll explore all your financial life, give you an idea of where you stand today, give you access to Right Capital where you can begin fleshing out your retirement plan and a whole host of recommendations to make your retirement that much better. If you already have a retirement plan, a good micro action might be to assess where you would fall, which maturity level would you fall into, your plan fall into, and what's one thing that we can do to enhance it. So maybe you have a defined plan, but what's the one thing you can do to get it up to a feasible plan? Maybe you have a feasible plan. What's the one shock or stress that you can assess to see how resilient it is? And if you have a resilient plan, what's the one thing you can do to make it even optimized, even better? So remember, the more mature your retirement plan is, the more confidence you'll have as you navigate towards the transition into retirement. Hope you find this information helpful on your path to retirement that is prosperous, enjoyable, and purposeful. Till next time, thanks again for taking the time to watch this week's episode of the True Wealth Financial Show. I encourage you to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Additionally, you can find more information on our website at www.truewealth.show. One final note, though, as we wrap up to today's show. While I hope the information was helpful, valuable, and insightful, it's really for information and educational purposes only. Prior to making any decisions or taking any actions, I'd strongly encourage you to talk to your legal, tax, estate, or financial advisor who's familiar with the unique circumstances of your particular personal situation. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, hope you have a great day.